Hello, hello. Welcome back to AmandaMuse. Just making sure we're all live and everything's good to go, but in case you are watching the replay, tonight we're going to be talking all about learning a second language as a child and some of the pros and cons, and then just some of my overall jitters and nerves about that. So, let me just do a little technical stuff to make sure I'm all a go here. But it should be good to go. Welcome. Good evening. Hello, hello. All right. Am I working? Oh, I should be working. I'm live. Hi. Okay, so welcome back to AmandaMuse. Hope you guys are having a good night. We're a little later tonight. It's a little late here, but I had a busy day, but I don't want to miss my live. So how are you guys all doing? Hi. Hi, Brianna. I'm just opening up the feed here so I can see the comments, but I hope you guys are doing well. I have like serious makeup on my face because I was doing a shoot earlier today. Okay, so let's see here. Volume off. There we go. If you're watching the replay, bear with me for just a second here. We're about to jump into some great conversation. And is it up? Is it up? Fabulous. Yay, I see everybody. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Sarah. Brianna, I said hello already. Hi, Louie. Hi, Shannons Corner. Oh my gosh, so many people. Fabulous. Oh, hi from Texas. I hope you're doing okay. It's early morning here. This is Sarah. Hello. Greetings, everyone. Okay, welcome back. So tonight on the agenda, I want to talk about learning a second language. So I'm not sure if there's a lot of new people here, but I do speak French. I was born and raised in the province of Quebec, and in Canada it's a bilingual province, although Canada itself is bilingual, but predominantly in Quebec, people use both languages very frequently. And so I naturally took it in school. Well, fast forward, here we are, how many years later, and now I have children, and so my daughter Esme is going into grade 1, and here in Ontario there are several schools that do French immersion. And so we were faced with the dilemma, or question really, about whether or not to put her into French immersion. So, oh my goodness, hello from Australia, amazing. Sitting in your pajamas, perfect, Brittany. I'm kind of half in pajamas. So it's an interesting thing because it seems like for most people to learn a second language, especially in Canada, to learn French is just slam dunk, easy answer, yes. That just seems to be what everybody does. However, I've been on the fence about this. Now I might get a little bit of flack for this opinion, but hear me out. So when I was living in Montreal, and I lived in the suburbs, so an English Anglophone suburb, lots of people still spoke French. Like I remember going to the dermatologist and his receptionist, I think on purpose, didn't speak English. So you had to be able to function in the French language. And so in school, you automatically, I think it was, I can't remember exactly when you did the switch where it just became both English and French, because there was a moment there. But you just picked it up, and I remember like winning French immersion awards. Like this was just part of our education. And then when I started working in retail or wherever, you had to speak French in order to converse with people. That's just how it worked, right? So I think it's like, if you're living in a place where you're going to be speaking that second language, then I get it. Because naturally, when I finished school, I had to work and speak in both languages, and it worked out. So pros is that, of course, I got a job shortly after that, and I won't go into like my whole life history here, but I got a job as a flight attendant. I had to be bilingual, so that helped. So I certainly see the pros of getting you work. It's just like that one extra thing that you have. Chunky Monkey 1983 was saying, as a fellow Canadian, I wish I had done better in French class and wished I wasn't allowed to drop it in high school. Interesting. I'm curious where or what province you live where you think it would be necessary for you. Oh, thank you, Lydia. She likes to watch my videos. They always make her, what is it? They're always entertaining and so fun to watch. I'm so glad. I know, eyelashes. I am wearing fake eyelashes. Warning. Quite frankly. So I did a shoot this morning, sidestep. Talking with me is like sometimes just lots of talking, but I did a I did a shoot, a Facebook Live earlier today, and so I had these lashes on, and then I came home and tried to take them off, and I was like, this isn't going to work unless I take off my full face of makeup. And let me tell you, I wasn't about to put all this back on again. Once a day is enough. So here's how we look. And Naomi here was saying, Villaval, that a second language is always a good option. And I agree. Okay, so here's where I've been struggling. Now, I pulled up an article because I am not alone on this thought process. So I literally Googled pros and cons of learning a second language. The pros, let's bang those out of the park. 2 languages are better than 1. Of course. It's just something you can add to your resume. That was another one, that it can increase employment options, which, to that point's defense, when I moved, so I lived in Quebec, then I moved to Ontario, ironically enough, I'm back here. Then I moved to BC, and when I was in BC, I got a job, primarily because I spoke both languages, and they actually overlooked other skills and degrees that I didn't have because I had French. So that was a plus. So it's true. It does increase employment options. It says here that people who speak 2 languages are master test takers. So that was something I didn't know, but that there have been exams to prove that people or students, younger people who have 2 languages, have, what is it here, longer attention spans and have better cognitive skills. So that's very interesting. Maybe you're tapping into parts of your brain that you don't necessarily tap into when you already have an established language. So that's pretty interesting. And then the last one is that there's a social circle expansion. So obviously if you speak multiple languages, there's potential that you could have more friends and just a bigger social circle because you have now opened up a whole other language to communicate in. I get it. Some cons. Okay, and then there was another one here. We're going to flip between 2 articles. The other one was that children tend to pick up languages faster than grown adults. So if you were going to introduce a second language, to do it when your children are young is a pretty good option because they're just kind of like these tiny sponges and they're going to naturally pick it up. Great. Let's talk about some cons here because this is kind of where I'm at. Let me just see some of the comments, just so I don't forget about you guys. But let's see here. Muslimin Hashim was saying he's Malaysian, or she's Malaysian, and it's always a plus knowing a second language. In Malaysia, especially for those looking for a good career, you have an added advantage. Absolutely. And this is the interesting thing, because in other countries, like Malaysia, there's plenty of languages going on there, and yet they're all able, and English on top of it. And so to have someone that speaks 2 languages is very, very common. Where in Canada, you hear a lot where people learned French in school and then they lost it. So that's kind of my other con is, I guess, con number 1. If you're going to spend all of this time learning a second language, are you going to get a chance to actually need to speak it in a social situation where all of your learning is going to come into practice? Because one thing I will say, my French is very school French. It's a little bit more, not professional, I guess professional French. What's the word I'm looking for? It's late, forgive me. But like, if there's no slang in my French, so I feel embarrassed sometimes if I'm just having a casual conversation in French because I just don't have all the lingo because I don't practice it all the time. And let me tell you, I am rusty as heck right now in my French because I don't practice it at all. So there's that. There was a question here saying, from Claire Chisholm, does Dean speak French too? No, he does not, although, ironically enough, his father, so my father-in-law, is French. So he does speak French quite a bit and grew up speaking a lot of French and still does to this day, so he is very fluent and is very comfortable speaking in it. And will you speak French at home with the kids? Chances are no. I probably won't. I have noticed in the last few weeks that I've started to just introduce some more French words into our daily language because I'm trying to get Esme excited about taking on French in grade 1 and just sort of like get her in that zone. But some cons, I am genuinely worried about her reading. So Esme, we didn't place a big deal on home reading last year because I was like, it's SK, it's senior kindergarten, it's not real school. Maybe mom fail, but I figure you get one chance to be a kid and grade 1 is like serious business in a way. So it's going to be an adjustment for her. And I thought, well, let's just enjoy kindergarten and grade 1 we'll get it right. So I'm a little bit worried about the French and the English reading and how she's going to do in English if now she's worried about reading in French. So I don't know, again, I don't know how much is going on in grade 1 in terms of the curriculum. We shall see. But there's that there could be, what's the word that they use here of the cons? Oh, that wasn't in this one, but it was just that the learning can be a little bit slower because now you've got 2 languages competing with each other and you're trying to learn things at the same time for 2 languages, right? Let me see here some of the comments. Anastasia Rubia was saying, I was in French immersion, but I haven't used it since high school. I'm not choosing immersion for my kids because I didn't enjoy it myself. Now, that's a very good comment because I truly think that the only reason I can consider myself bilingual is because when I finished school, I had to speak in French for jobs, for multiple jobs, for years, and therefore naturally just picked it up and to be able to chat in it. However, if you're not going to use it, is it just an added stress throughout school? And I suppose that that is something that as a parent, we can check in as we go and keep that conversation going with the school and the teachers and see how, you know, my daughter and my son are going to do on their own. And I suppose if it gets to a point where it's just too much, then maybe we decide to take her out of it. But I figured the reason why at the end of the day that we chose to do French immersion is because you can't decide later to put them in it, so I may as well start in French immersion, see how she does, and then decide and make some decisions based on her performance. This is a very weird conversation because I place importance on education. However, I don't know. I don't want to insult anybody or like make such grand statements because sometimes I put my foot in my own mouth, but like, I don't know. To be book smart is great, but it's not everything. And if my kids don't excel that way, it's not going to be a big deal and we're going to figure things out. And so that's kind of my take on life. So I don't know. I struggle with like putting all this pressure on a 5-year-old, you know, to learn 2 languages. Let's see here. Marie Lam Z222 was saying, I took a child development class and young minds are fast and amazing learners. Exactly. And that is definitely a pro that was in both articles that talked about how kids are like these tiny absorbent sponges and they can pick up 2 things, 2 languages, and multiple languages, right? Like more than 2. Even if the initial learning is a bit slower, eventually they all catch up. So there's that. Let's see here. Oh, and she was saying the same viewer, Marie Lam, was that her mother spoke to her in Spanish and it was only English from her dad. Interesting. Very interesting. I have a cousin that does that, or not a cousin, my aunt does that. She speaks to her children primarily in French. Her husband speaks to them in English. It's a little hard, and like, I love her to bits, but sometimes it's hard to be around that because it's like so many languages happening at the same time. But hey, you do you, and you do what works for your family, right? Let's see here. Stephanie DCC was saying, I think maybe it's the grading aspect of it that is unnecessary. Oh, that's a really interesting perspective. I'm assuming that's just like grading the child in French. That'll be really interesting because I actually don't have much information on that in terms of the curriculum. Like, is it more exposure to the French language or are we actually grading them in it? I like your thought process. Let's see. NCR Mama was saying, while learning to read in French, my son naturally started to learn English. They are French-speaking family, and our son goes to a French school. Oh, interesting. Just naturally started to pick up a second language. Gosh, kids are amazing. Aiko Dao was saying both of her kids speak and read Japanese and English. They were slow at learning both languages, but do not worry, they will catch up. Okay, you must have written that before I said that, but that's what I've heard, is that it can be this initial struggle, but, and like Romy was saying here, expect a bump in the road, but I think it's worth it. And that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, you know, as a parent, you want to like prevent a lot of struggle for your kids, but there are some good struggles that they need to experience, and being challenged with something like taking on a new language, and the way that we're positioning right now within our household is that it's very exciting. So any of these nerves that I'm expressing are basically between me and you. Like, that's it. Esme does not know about this, and Esme is asleep, so she's not hearing any of this. And she doesn't watch my YouTube channel, so we're good. But yeah, it's more, we're very excited. We've been watching a lot of Beauty and the Beast, and Belle speaks French, so that's fun in our little French town. But it's really like an exciting time, and we're really excited about school, and we're trying to be like super pumped about it so that when she does hit a bump, it's not the end of the world, and we'll just handle it and go with the flow. Erin was saying her reading will be totally fine. Always focus on native language first, and skills that are mastered will transfer. Hey, that's a really great thing to note. And you know, it goes without saying, like, she's my firstborn, and so with your first, you tend to go through all of these new things together. So you get to come along for the ride. Let's see here. Melissa Vincelli was saying if the French immersion doesn't seem right for her, you could always have her take French classes while she's learning the language, but isn't necessarily having to learn in French. Totally. And I think I was talking to a parent the other day, because it is a little different when you do leave the province of Quebec, because that's something else. Is to me, French immersion, I'm thinking Quebec French immersion, which I believe is a little different than provinces outside of Canada where there is more English. I think that's the case. I think it's a little easier. But I did hear from people that go to the same school as Esme that they don't speak to them all day in French. That doesn't happen till something like 4th grade, which is great because I just don't think they'd be ready for that just yet. I mean, she's just trying to cope with going to school. So Kristen Park was saying, don't stress. We are also doing French immersion next year for her son who's in SK right now, and keep an open mind. If there's a struggle, pull her out. If she excels, then that's wonderful. Absolutely. And I think to give your children the chance to try it, right? See how it goes. Let's see here. Anastasia was saying her mom panicked when her little sister was in grade 3 and still couldn't read in English and pulled her from immersion. She probably would have been fine though. This is it, and I think that's the thing, is that kids learn at all different stages, and I think it's important, whatever it is, if it's a second language, if you've got like an 8-month-old that is trying to learn to do all the things and crawl and use their pincher fingers or whatever, it can be overwhelming to read like what they're supposed to achieve at certain points in their development, and to remember, like, every kid is different and every kid is going to learn at different times, and that's probably why I haven't put too much pressure on Esme for reading. I'm like, it will come. It will come. So, let's see here. Yeah, so, Summer Carter Barnes was saying she took Spanish all throughout high school. She needed it at university admission requirement, and she got all A's, and I can't speak a lick. I knew I wouldn't need it. That's hilarious. So that, it goes to show you that depending what your goals are, it might just be that extra thing that you need to get into schools. That's hilarious. So this is it, like there's so many, and then what was some of the cons? Let's wrap that up a little bit here, or excuse me, did we talk about the cons? No, we didn't yet. This one article was saying that tutoring can get expensive, so that if you were thinking that your child maybe wasn't doing so well in class, to find them a French tutor could be hard. I speak French, so that's fine. School years yield a higher return. This one was talking about graduate school and more learning a second language as an adult, so we're going to skip that one. Just talking about the cons of that, as the older you are, the harder it is to take a second language. Again, she's young, so I think that wouldn't be a factor. And that the last point, and this is a good one, talks about how a lot of kids' schedules are full enough. So that's something, right? I find right now there's a lot of talk about back to school, activities that kids are going to be enrolled in. We have not enrolled Esme in anything else. I think what I'd like to do is just take this first half of the year and just get adjusted to going to school full time. Because if you're new to my journey, then last year, a little update, is we sort of took a very laissez-faire kind of approach to school because it was play-based learning and she didn't need to be there every day, where this year, serious business. So she needs to go every day, and I think that's going to be a huge adjustment for everybody in this house. So I thought, I'm not going to tack on swimming lessons. I'm not going to do any of that unless she shows like serious interest. We'll talk in a few months. But yeah, so I want to keep everything kind of like basic, knowing it's going to be a bigger year for her. Dutch was saying, I have a friend who is learning a second language herself as a hobby and is including her toddler in on the lessons, so they do it together. Oh, that's so awesome. That's really cool. That's really cool. Let's see here. Did I miss any comments? Lasheni 21 Nails just says, I regret not being as strict about speaking Spanish at home with my second son as I was with my firstborn, because now he's 13 and doesn't want to speak as much as his older brother. That's true, right? I suppose it's like the energy you put out there, and you really, I feel like you kind of just have this one shot when they're little, because I cannot imagine sitting down with like my teenage child and trying to debate with them why they should take up a second language. I'd imagine that would be a hard thing to address. So I may as well just tackle it head on here. Let's see here. Shannons Corner, I think you'd always wonder if you didn't have her do it. I wish I would have had the chance to learn Spanish at a young age. Exactly. And that is exactly what's propelling me to make that decision. So the decision is made already. Esme will be starting French Immersion in the fall. Is it French Immersion? I guess it is. Yeah, French Immersion in the fall. Grade 1. I think it's going to be pretty basic. And we're excited. I obviously have my hesitations, as I just shared, but at the end of the day, I think you got to give her a chance to try it, because she might do really, really well, and she might love it a ton, so why not, right? And I do speak French, and it would be kind of sad if neither of my kids really knew any French, especially knowing that their heritage from both mom and dad's side of the family, there is the French language, so it would be nice to see that passed on a little bit. I'll just make sure I get to everybody's questions here, and then I'll wrap it up, because it is getting late. Let's see. Great conversation, by the way. I love all your comments. Roxanne was saying, I took Spanish in grade school and 1 and 2 in college, and I lost it from not using it. And this is it. And then NCR Mama was saying you could read books in French. That's probably just for myself too, but that's a good way to continue to practice it. And I feel like now there's so much more exposure to multiple languages, whether it's a podcast, YouTube, watching shows in French. Like, there's so much more available, except like when I was a teenager, it was those horrible books I had to read for home reading, and that was it, and like bad TV. So there's a whole lot more options now to keep kids' attention, so that's a plus for sure. Anyhow, that is that. I think I will wrap it up here. That's all I can think about in terms of my thoughts about back to school and learning French as a second language. And let's see, Romy was saying, as long as you listen and support her, I think you guys will figure out what's best for your family. I agree. I like that. Yeah. Melissa was saying she seems like a kid who's going to come out and tell you if she's struggling with it. Trying it is a wonderful thing for her. Absolutely. We have great communication. Sometimes a little too good, sometimes a little too loud, but it works. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new, please consider subscribing. I put out videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'll also be live on Facebook tomorrow if you want to catch me there, talking all about dress codes, because there was some juicy news things happening all about boys and girls and gender and like dress codes and how we handle those situations. So I'd love to continue the conversation there. I will leave links below, and otherwise have a great night, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.